All right, so you wrote an article on the Big Spur, switching to football now.
Mm-hmm.
It is the smorgasbord, after all. We're heading to the carving station, Phil.
That's right. That's right.
Past the salad bar, the sides, the fixins.
We even dipped into a little dessert before we got there too. So
got a little dessert.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
So you said projecting which true freshman could play in 2025, and just want to ask you about it. Starting with Malik Clark, Malik was a guy when they signed him, Alex, that I thought physically was ready, because some of these guys are smaller. Sellers, Cyrus, and Rowe are a little on the skinny side, right? Malik, not so much. He's 190 pounds, big old kid. I thought in the spring game, and based on information about his progression this spring, that catch he made, that's exactly what I think you want Malik Clark to be doing. Mm-hmm. Jump up, get the ball, come down with it. He's that kind of guy. But tell me why you put Malik on there.
Just for those reasons right there, I think he had a really good spring and kind of brings some size to that room, which a few of these guys do. Brian Rowe, I know I mentioned him in there as well, but Malik's this guy that's, I think, at 6'2" right now, 6'2", 190. A guy that, and he's fast too. I mean, 10 seconds and 10.7 in the 100 meter. Like, he brings size and speed, which is something they continue to need to build in that wide receiver room. And I think he, along with a few of those other guys that I mentioned, had solid springs. And I really probably could have put all those receivers in this, 5 spots, and it would have made sense that those guys are going to play a lot. But because especially I think some of those guys can help in special teams as well, like Cyrus, Jaden Sellers, and those guys. But Malik, I think he and Brian Rowe really had two of the better spring practices overall from a wide receiver standpoint. And not to jump ahead, but then Donovan Murph, like, if he would have been in for the spring, it would have been pretty much a shoe-in to be in this, but I included him anyway because I think he's a guy that can come in right away and pick up where those guys are. And because he could end up being the best of the bunch. I think he's really good, and I think he's got a chance to make an impact right away.
All right, so this is interesting. You said Kendall Daniels would be a guy. Now, this is a guy we've talked about a lot because of his size. He was a player that, when his junior year of high school, a lot of people were wondering where he was going to play. They played him in the box a lot. Brian Doan had that question. Brian Doan went to see him play as a senior, and he's a kind of like DQ Smith. He played quarterback for his high school team, and then Brian Doan walked away and said, "Nah, this is definitely a 4-star level guy that's got a lot of." A lot of ability in the secondary. I mean, the questions were answered, so to speak. 4-star player, Fred Johnson's high school, as you eloquently pointed out in your article. But what made you include him here in your freshman most likely to play? Almost kind of was a little bit of a quiet spring for him, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that and Phil, I sent you the link to that article for you to put in the chat box so people can go enjoy it. Alex's work. If they haven't read it already. But what made you put Kendall Daniels in there?
Yeah, when I was starting to put this together, I didn't have him in there, but the more I thought about it, I was like, this guy could end up playing a little bit. Like, I think from one, like, you see on special teams these past few years, they always have a freshman defensive back or two that are on special teams, and I think he's one that could really fit that kickoff role or kickoff return or punt or role. Like, but then you think about him in that safety spot, like they're trying to figure out. I think if you had to pencil in a starter right now, I think you give it to Peyton Williams right now to see what he can do. But David Busey's also competing there. Don't forget about him. But I mean, Kendall Daniels could be a guy that you see a little bit because they do like to rotate a little bit there at that safety spot, but. I think he's one that, I do, like you mentioned, a little bit of a quiet spring, but I don't think that means too much. But he's really intriguing. That brings that size that Torian Gray likes at that safety spot, 6'4". Like you see, what they did with Nick Emmenwar. You see some of that size. Like you see a little bit of it. They got Jazavian Currents coming in next year. Like you see, he fits that what they look for in that safety spot. And he's really played quarterback in high school, really athletic guy. Like I think he's got a chance to have a really good career at South Carolina, but I think you can see a little bit of him this year, depending on how much they rotate in. I wouldn't say he's going to start at that safety spot because you still got those other guys there, but we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, I like his size there. Do we know what his speed actually looks like? Is any of that going to come out? I mean, is he a fast player? I mean, we know Nick Emmenwar obviously can, elite speed at that size, at that position, right? So is that kind of what the expectation is for Daniels, or what? Do we know very much about him at this point?
Yeah, I think there's enough speed there to be able to do what he needed to do in that safety spot. I think kind of going back, it's that quarterback role that he played in high school for his high school, and I think it's just the athleticism he brings. Kind of same thing you saw a little bit with Nick Moore when he was coming out of high school. Just that quick, twitchy, fast, athletic guy, and I think he kind of fits that as well.
Yeah, he's probably about a 4.55 guy.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
But Nick coming out, I mean, he ran at camp kind of in the 4.5 range. Some people want to move to linebacker, which I thought was asinine, just to be honest. I was like, you have a freak safety back there. Why would you move him to linebacker? At the time, the linebackers weren't that fast, so I'll take that, but not asinine. But it was still like, I don't know why we're in a hurry to move people sometimes early in their career. I think it's because Lou Holtz moved Andrea Gauls to cornerback 1 year, took one of his best receivers and moved him to corner in 2002. Anyway, I think it all stems from that. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then you had Anthony Addison on here. I think the thing about Addison, and Hale's been all over this guy, Alex, is not so much his ability as a player, but his size. Now he's listed 6'3.5", 6'4", 230 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he can get to 245? Do you think he can be what Wendell Gregory may have been this year? That's a tough ask for a guy right out of high school, but he's had spring practice. You're kind of that 6th or 7th rotation guy at edge. Mm-hmm. I think that would be good for him. I'd be excited about seeing that just because I trust Hale. When Hale locks in on a guy that's a good player, you can usually take it to the bank. You tell me about Addison.
Yeah, I think Anthony Addison's one that, kind of got some praise throughout spring practice. I think he had a really good spring practice overall. And Shane Beamer, I got it up right here, said, that he was a guy that could be a problem for offenses because he had great twitch and get off. And, I think you saw a little bit of that and heard a little bit about that. And I think that is the next step for him, is continue to get bigger, because they do like those edge guys to kind of be in that 240, 245 range. But if he can get there, that'd be huge. And, again, it kind of goes back to, they like to rotate a lot on that defensive line. And you got JT Gear there, you got Deju there, Brian Thomas Jr. But with how much they rotate, like, you could see it, Anthony Addison, with just how strong of a spring he had, to get some playing time, which would be big for the future, just for him to have that playing time to build on. And we'll see what he's able to do. But, I mean, he could be a guy that you see kind of in those middle parts of the game where he's stealing about 10 reps or 5 or 10 reps in there, and see how productive he can be.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I think I would feel good about things, because I was kind of under the impression he was a guy that would take more than a year, But and sometimes that's just because he's got to get his body right and got to get bigger and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with his ability as a player. But 6'4", 230 is bigger than I thought he would be. I mean, coming in, he must have grown some. Sumter kid, hey, it makes sense. Those guys are dogs. Most of them, ballers. It's from some baller. There's a little rule for you, Alex, because I know you're covering more recruiting now. Sumter has dogs, ballers.
Right.
They should call it the Baller City. Really.
Hey, Donald Fortune.
Donald Fortune. I'll go. Josh Simon from the Sumter area. I'll go all the way back to, other Kyle Nunn started here. He's from Sumter. Hot Rod McDowell played at Clemson. He's a baller. Sumter's got some dudes.
And with that edge spot, like Jaquavius Dodd's also, and Jaquavius Dodd looks like the edge that they were kind of a 6'6" guy, but I think he could be a guy like maybe it's a year later before he gets in there. But I think he would benefit from that, having that redshirt year. But I mean, he's a guy that you look at him like, that guy could play right away.
Yeah, he looks the part. Clint actually in our chat box saw him, and he was like, man, that guy looks like a guy that can play. Clint's good with talent and stuff. He's watched Dodd since his days at Eastside, and Dodd's always a guy kind of like his cousin Kevin that played at Clemson. He looks the part. Going to take a little bit, but man, maybe he could be Devin Taylor. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, Devin Taylor didn't take as long as we thought. He was redshirt freshman year. He was a starter. Of course, back in those days, we all kind of fretted over who was going to start and not panic over who the third team or fourth team D tackle was going to be. Like we do around here these days. Donovan Darden's the final one I want to ask you about. I'm with you. He gets in the rotation. I think AJ Holloway is another guy. Josh Smith's another guy that could get maybe. I do think a true freshman most likely will kind of be in the rotation because I think Jerron Willis is probably more of that third line. He's even more of that third linebacker type than Bam Martin Scott, who obviously started in the two-backer set. I think Willis may be more towards just when they go to the three-man front as a pass rusher rather than a fourth linebacker. So somebody's got to be the fourth linebacker. So you think Darden's got the chance to do that? Maybe be like Fred Johnson was the fourth linebacker last year. Maybe he's Fred Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I think he could fit perfectly into that Fred Johnson role last year. Fred got enough, he got a good bit of reps last year in a lot of games, and that's going to benefit him this year. And I think Darden can fill that role as well. And I agree on the Jerron Willis thing. I think he can be like a special kind of edge pass rusher when they go to that three-man front and when they get in obvious passing down situations. Like, I think he can also fill in at that third linebacker role when they need him to, but you can really see, when he's coming off the edge, that's kind of where I think he lives and is going to be his best, and which kind of, I think gives Darden that edge because, he was a guy in high school that his senior year at Havelock, he just continued to blow up. Like, he was the guy that in that spring game before that 2 years ago, I think they offered him right after that spring game, and he wasn't too much of a known prospect. I think he had offers from Illinois and NC State, but South Carolina offered him, and then he blew up his senior year, had a great Shrine Bowl, and a guy that I think everybody was trying to decide, is he going to be an edge? Is he going to be a linebacker? Because he looked at that side for the edge, but I also really like him at linebacker. I think he's got the speed to get east-west enough, and if he can get whatever for all these guys, these freshmen I mentioned, whatever reps they can get, it's going to help them for the future. But I think Darden can help them a little bit in that linebacker room, along with, you mentioned AJ Holloway. AJ's got that speed or got that frame to kind of be that middle linebacker type of guy, the stuff they're running. Those two guys could really make really high potential as well.
Yeah, I was team Darden needs to have his hand in the dirt until the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was wrong. I'll admit it. I was wrong. All right, Alex, man, go enjoy the rest of your day, bud. Keep working hard and doing your thing. Great episode of the late night Gamecock show last night with Matt. You can all catch that right here on Chief Sports South Carolina YouTube channel. It's an awesome weekly show. So keep trucking, dude, and hold the fort down, man. Smorgasbord was outstanding today.
Got it. Appreciate y'all. See y'all next time.
JC